Good day again, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us as we get ever closer to Vermont Town Meeting Day coming up on Tuesday, March 4th. Happy to have two of the three candidates in a contested select board race in Swanton joining us today. We have Nick Brosseau and a current select board member with an appointment recent, a couple months ago, Brendan Long. Thanks for joining us, folks. I should note that there's a third candidate in this race, Brendan Kelly, and I was hoping Brendan would join us, but I've repeatedly tried to get Brendan on the phone, texted him, and got no response, so we do not have Brendan Kelly, but he is on the ballot. And I just want to mention there's also a second contested select board race in Swanton. Joel Clark, the select board chairman, being challenged by Alan Letourneau. I was hoping to do a show with those two folks, but Alan Letourneau declined to do the show. But anyway, two contested races. Nick, no stranger to Swanton, going for select board member, and give us a little background and why you decided to jump into the race.
Yes, sure. My name is Nick Brosseau. I'm a lifelong Swanton resident, and I serve in different capacities around the town and county, like trustee of public money, and on the cemetery commission, and as high bailiff for all of Franklin County. So,
boy, you are. In fact, I actually forgot that. Geez, that's pretty bad. You are indeed the duly elected high bailiff.
Yes, I am. I replaced Roberta Allard.
Right, Bobby Allard. Yeah.
Bobby Allard. And
interesting. Tell me again. I've asked the question. I'm sure I heard this. Is there one instance where you might have to do something with that job if the sheriff has some issue, or you tell me?
There was one time in Windham County, like in 2006,
really?
Where the sheriff resigned. There was some corruption scandal.
Yeah.
And technically, the high bailiff took over the office for a short while.
Really?
And they appointed a police captain of Brattleboro. So yeah, it does have some responsibilities to it still, especially if the sheriff happens to resign.
Interesting. Nothing you've had to do with this at this point?
Nothing at this point, no. Though I did go to the courthouse and get sworn in, so that was fun.
Really? No, I forgot that. Good for you. I know you ran unopposed, as I recall, or did you?
Yeah, I ran unopposed, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so just to rope it back into select board, that's why I feel like I work for Vermont Health Connect as my day job.
Okay.
Work with people around the state, and that's why I feel like I have the qualifications to be a successful select board member, and I've been involved in the community in so many capacities, and I would look forward to getting involved with the select board.
Great. Brendan, you got the appointment about, 4 months or so ago?
Yeah, that's
for
correct.
the select board to, anyway, and been a good 4 months, or tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so it's been a wonderful 4 months. Great to have the opportunity to join the board. I'm brand new to Swanton. Over the past year, my wife and I, Jory Spalding, her family's lifelong Swantoners.
Boy, that's a Swanton name I remember.
It goes back a little bit. Yeah, so we moved to the area after we got married and purchased a home in Swanton, and so that's what brought us to the area. And just about that time, a couple months later, there was the opening on the board. And so I come from a long line of, my grandfather was a selectman down in Bells Falls, Vermont, where I'm originally from. And then Jory's grandfather as well up here was a selectman as well. So big opportunity to give back to a great community that was extremely welcoming to us. And so very appreciative of the board. So thank you to the board that appointed me to fill that seat. And we've had a great time. I mean, I came in during budget season. At the very start, and a really eye-opening experience for me to just understand all the working pieces of the town itself, how everyone's coming together, and how conscious people are of the tax burden that we're putting on our citizens.
Interesting. And you work for TD Bank?
I do, yeah. I work for TD Bank. I'm remote, so I work from home in Swanton, but I fly down to Philly about once a month.
Interesting.
Yep.
Nick, what's again? You certainly run before. You've been active in Swanton. What's most on voters' minds? I know the police budget that the Swanton town voters very narrowly approved a year ago was a big issue. Any particularly big issue this time around?
I think overall the cost of living, and just the tax rate in general.
Yeah.
I think when I hear from most voters online, or when I talk to them, they're really worried about their property taxes going up.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for the select board to make sure they're not, when they do projects, they're financially responsible for the projects that they do, and make sure they're not giving too much of a burden to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go over some of the articles anyway. Do you support all the articles on the ballot or no? Of
I
course, you had
believe most of the articles this year
Yeah.
are pretty modest, so
Okay.
yes.
Brendan, you were part of the process. Can I assume you support the articles that are
I
being
do, yeah.
proposed for voter consideration?
I do, yeah. I support the articles that are included in there. One thing I'd like to point out that's going to be a big issue in the next couple of years that I think this, whoever gets the appointment, is going to be the options tax. That's going to come to the town.
That was on my list. In fact, that got discussion, and it sounded like it was with the village in town. It was a little confusing or a little complicated but I guess the legislature, I think Rep. Tom Oliver, one of your reps, is giving some attention to try to make that a little easier to deal with.
Yeah, the big concern today is that from a municipality perspective, you can only have it in the village or the town, or you can enact it for both. But as Nick brought up, we already have our constituents that are very concerned with the tax that we already are placing on them. This is consumer goods that then we're going to be placing a tax on top of. It's that cost of living that's really going to rise from it. So I think there's twofold parts of it. The first is, does it make sense for our town, and ensuring that we're doing it from a one Swanton approach, that we're not having, instead of the 1% for the village and 1% for the town, we're doing a blended view across both, but also ensuring that those dollars are going to benefit projects that affect all voters. So I think, something that the board really has to focus on is not how do we enact that, which I think, as you pointed out, our legislator needs to handle, so that way we can do it from an overall perspective. But we need to worry how we're going to spend that money. Is it capital improvements? Is it beautification of the town? I think there's a wide variety of uses. But if we do vote on that and it gets passed, I think that's really what it's going to come down to, is how do we ensure that the right value is brought back to the community?
So you would support that? You think that's a good idea if you can pull that off, to vote an LOT in?
I do, and the reason why I support it so much is because the amount of homes that we would have to purchase to make up for the amount of revenue that we would generate from this tax. If we can do the 1%, many of the surrounding communities already do this. So from a competitive standpoint, if we look town to town, we're already behind in that aspect. I would use St. Albans as a key example.
I'm a St. Albans city resident, both city and town have it. I think it's on the ballot in Montgomery, at least one other Franklin County town voting on that next week.
Large opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I think it really does come down to, for the voters, from my perspective, is that it's how do we spend that money and make sure that it's the right investments.
Yeah. Nick, local option tax, good idea? Or have you got?
I think it's a good idea. I think we have to find the right time to implement it.
Yeah.
I think it can't be. I don't know if right now it is with the way most residents are feeling about local taxes. But yeah, it's about finding the right way. It's about listening to local business owners. Yeah. I know some of them when it comes to Merchants Row, they're saying that a lot of these businesses are new and they may not be ready for a local option tax that could have cut into their profits a little bit. So I think it's a matter of listening to the voters, and also, as Brendan said, making sure the money goes to the right projects in terms of how we use the tax. So yeah, it's a matter of making sure it's implemented at the right moment and for how the community feels is the right reasons.
Yeah, of course, the state loves communities doing LOTs, because typically the state gets, 30% of the share, unless a municipality administers it itself, administers the tax itself, which I think doesn't happen too often. So that sounds like the state's very happy to have folks do local option taxes. You think Swanton's going in the right direction, Nick? You happy with how the town's going, or are there significant changes in some areas you'd like to see, or are you pretty happy with what's going on in the town these days?
I'm overall happy with the way the town's going. I think we have a lot of active community members that do care about the community and want to see. We have like local events. I know, like the Chamber of Commerce and the Recreation Department and the Historical Society, all active, putting on different events for the community. I would love to see more economic growth in the community. I don't think we have a big enough industrial base. In terms of, I know we have precision tools, but I would like to see a more thriving employment for folks, so they don't all have to drive to Chittenden County or St. Albans to to commute to work.
I think the project kind of in its early stages at the Franklin County State Airport, are you hopeful that that might pay some good dividends down the road?
I'm hopeful, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I know that it's going to be implemented, so, and I know Highgate voters voted on it.
Yeah.
And I know there's some pushback when it comes to the Franklin County Field Days, but I feel like we can work past that and at least get an airport that supports the community a lot better.
Yeah. Brendan, the direction of the town, are you pleased with what you see in Swanton these days?
Yeah, I don't think anybody can complain with how beautiful the Merchants Row and the heart of the village has become, especially since putting in Green Mountain Bistro, Missing Piece Bakery, the revitalized Ace there now, and the old auditorium. And so I think there's, we've seen large growth, new businesses, as Nick brought up. New businesses are coming in, they're thriving. I think we have a very supportive community for those businesses as well, which is exactly what we need. We need to shop local, we need to support our local business owners. I think there is opportunity for further growth. It's a problem that isn't unique to Swanton, but I believe we can provide a unique solution, is that housing overall is a struggle, and it's not unique even to Vermont, but it's something that Swanton, we do have the opportunity. We can continue to support our developers and build new single-family homes, which is the vast majority of what we have. And so I think if we can continue to build, that's where I see the largest opportunity for us is, it also lessens the tax burden on the average citizen. If we can continue to bring in those single-family homes and provide the opportunity for Vermonters to buy their own real estate.
Nick, again, we touched on the police protection line item article, about $478,000. So again, you're supportive of that. That got a lot of attention a year ago. I guess that particular line item was up quite a bit.
Yeah, it did. They expanded the hours a little bit.
You got 10 hours, 7 days instead of 8 hours. Yeah,
and it passed, even though it was controversial. It passed. Yeah. And
did you support it a year ago?
Yes, I did. I did support it a year ago.
Very close vote. Do you think that'll have an easier time, or was?
I think it will.
Yeah.
I think overall it will. If I were to make a prediction.
Yeah. Again, you're supporting that. Have you got a sense? And I'm not sure, were you around a year ago, maybe?
I was. So I'm very supportive of it.
Yeah.
And I think Chief Sullivan has done a phenomenal job. Yeah. And we still have some openings there that he's looking to close. But I'm very supportive, and I think the community itself is very supportive of our police force. It's keeping us safe. I think Swanton is a very safe community, and it's because we have invested in that police force, and I would hope that we continue to do so. I would support doing so.
And it sounds like the general fund budget isn't up too significantly. It sounds like there's not a
big increase.
Any real big increases.
No, there's a marginal increase, but there's nothing too extravagant.
You mentioned housing. I mean, a huge issue all over the state, maybe all over the country. Mm-hmm. Any housing projects in the wind for Swanton? St. Albans City has certainly been doing seemingly its share. Anything going on in Swanton? Would you like to see some housing projects happen?
I would like to see some further housing projects. I know on Route 7 today we've got a couple new developments, mine being one of them. But so right there on 7.
Single-family homes?
Yep, single-family homes. There is a few duplexes as well, just off of Route 7 that are getting built. I think there is large opportunity, but I think that's one of the challenges that we face, and it's something that I know Steve Bourgeois has brought up in our select board meetings, is the conservation of land. And how Swanton today is already above 50% of conservation, and it's an issue that we're going to continue to face. If that land does get conserved, it's not going to be developable. So we need to face that, and we need to ensure that we're saving that land for the further development of additional homes to be built. I think there's large opportunity, especially in the Southern District, for further home development, if I'm to name a location.
Yeah.
But that's where I see the largest area of opportunity today.
And in fact, the National Guard is taking a look, I guess, has hopes to have kind of relocate there.
Right in front of my house.
Oh, is that right? You're close. Is that good news for you, or not so good?
I think the town garage affects it more in terms of traffic. I don't think the National Guard is going to affect it as much.
Yeah.
At least I highly doubt it.
But it sounds like that's some years away.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit away. Congress, last I checked, would have to approve it. It would have to approve the funding. Who knows how long that will take. So it's a little bit ways away.
Hearing much impact, of course, the Trump administration getting a ton of attention as it usually does, but certainly with Elon Musk and, with a lot of trying to just downsize the federal government. I thought of the refuge. You hearing any impacts locally on that? Of course, Missisquoi National Wildlife Refuge, not a big staff. What we have 4 or 5 or 6 folks dealing with 6,000 plus acres. But I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
I have not heard anything
Hearing
about it.
any impact on the effort to cut down? Obviously, I guess Border Patrol comes right to mind. But if you think anybody would be safe, I guess you might think it might be Border Patrol folks.
I think it's more of an impact from I'll call it a transportation issue. If now you have folks that previously were remote that could have possibly stayed in Swanton, now they're going to be forced to go into the office in certain instances.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, you're going to see some friction for some folks in the community where now they have a new expense. It's now the extra $50 a week on gas that they're going to have to spend going in, and that's less that they can spend on goods locally. And I think that's going to burden some of our citizens, and that's where I see the biggest impact so far, at least from what I've heard.
I work for Vermont Health Connect, and loss. There's not too much we can do about this when it comes to the select board. But loss of Medicaid. I know the cuts to Medicaid are going to hurt a lot of Vermonters. That a lot depend on the program, and it's going to. We can't. It may you will know someone that's affected by it.
Yeah.
For sure. Like there's so many people in that program that benefit from it.
Yeah. How long have you worked for Vermont Health Connect, Nick?
My 6-year anniversary is this month.
Really?
Yeah.
Congrats.
Boy, talk about an issue. Health insurance, of course, gets a ton of attention, especially with just trying to keep budgets reining in and stuff. But
It's always, the costs are always rising.
Yeah.
Blue Cross Blue Shield had like a 10% cost rise this year.
Yeah.
And it is very it's tough for folks, and with the ACA. Those extra money for it, the financial aid for it is set to expire come next year. So that's going to hurt people. That's going to hurt people financially as well.
Well, Vermont, not exactly awash in insurance companies wanting to do business in the state either, of course.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think even if you look locally, though, and how that impacts us, right?
Yeah.
So we have to think about that when it comes to our town employees and ensure that we have those funds set aside. I know that was, in a few instances for budgets, that was the major increase, is understanding, hey, we have new employees. We need to have this money set aside so that way it's not a surprise if midway through the year they're going to sign up for a plan. And that was a significant impact to a few different budgets. But the other concern there, too, is even when we're talking about ambulance service and emergency care, the heavy inflation there of the cost to serve our community that's where it's really getting impacted. So you're going to see that across a few different budgets.
And another thing to bring up would be the tariffs.
Yeah.
There's so much country trade, and we're a border town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to affect a lot of businesses in the local area as well.
Sounds like I know Jay Peak's been in the news. I guess Steve Wright, the head honcho out there, is saying they've already been hurt significantly by getting a lot of less Canadian traffic, a bunch of folks. And of course, as I'm sure you pay attention to, media north of the border. Yeah, that's been you're right, a huge issue with, the folks north of the border saying, hey, maybe let's not spend our money in the U.S., spend it at home or elsewhere. Is that already having maybe a slight effect, do you think, on business in Swanton?
I'm sure. I haven't asked the business owners, but it wouldn't shock me.
Could be.
Yeah.
And certainly that is a part of the Swanton economy. I mean, you count on, I don't know if it's maybe 10% or something, but for businesses, certainly getting, business from north of the border is obviously, probably pretty important to a number of these businesses.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a valid point there of Jay Peak. I know our ski industry especially, and of course you got to think we also have historically, Killington has held the open there. That's going out west, so that's going to impact us of those travelers that would come south.
Talking about the Killington Cup over Thanksgiving. I just caught that news. I guess they're doing some construction. I guess they're losing it for a year because they couldn't do it, but hopefully it'll come back. What a huge event.
Yeah, huge event. And I think, it comes down to your point of those cross-border customers that are going to be coming through. And it really will come down to that transportation of if we don't have those people that are traveling through Swanton, making their stops, supporting the local businesses on their way through. huge impact for us. But I think even more so in the winter, we might see that. But my biggest concern is during the summer, right? Where you would have those individuals coming down from Rouse's Point if they house their boats there, or if they're coming down to enjoy the lake. That's where I see it most.
Speaking of transportation, truck traffic, a huge issue in Swanton forever. Not that anybody who knows or lives in Swanton needs to be told that, but any hope, Nick? I guess there's some hope that when the last section of whatever the interstate, kind of like highway north of the border, gets finished, that might reduce some truck traffic through the town and village. Have you got hope for that, or?
Yeah, I've been hearing about that for years, and I know this is on the way to be finished.
Yeah.
I don't hear any word about any alternative route in Swanton or locally.
Seems like I remember that issue would come up decades ago, but I never hear anything about that, like a bypass or something.
Yeah, and right now I think they're mostly focused on the bridge. They're replacing, I believe, in 2029.
Right, the Route 78.
The Route 78, yeah. So I could understand it could be a little big issue for Swanton residents, to all those trucks going through, but at least I don't think it's a main priority as of right now to reduce it.
Any thoughts on truck traffic coming through the town, Brendan?
Yeah, I think the major concern that I have is as we do repairs to our bridge in the village as well. I know that was brought up a few select board meetings back. The concern there is first we have to get the readouts of what is the true damage there, what do we have to fix, and how major is that going to be. But then it comes down to how does that impact our local community in the village itself of Merchants Row, and understanding if we're going to redirect that traffic around Route 7, how does that affect those communities as well as it goes around the village, because that's going to greatly reduce the number. And I know they're exploring a few different options of closing down one lane versus both and doing it as quickly as possible. And it's really going to come down to that decision of which direction do they go. I'd like to see that remain open in some capacity because I'd hate to lose that traffic in the downtown.
Yeah.
But it depends on the efficiency of that. We don't want to be adding $100,000, $200,000 and delaying the project another 6 months to have a single lane open.
Yeah, a big issue in Swanton in recent years, just the recreation department. A lot of talk about the possibility of a new recreation and community center. And for a while, it looked like the select board was kind of moving on a bond vote to build a new building. And it sounds like, I guess, Brendan, you're on the board now, but it sounds like that's kind of been backed off. But your thoughts, would you ideally like to see a new rec and community center? Your thoughts on that, Nick?
I overall support it.
Yeah.
It has been taken off the rearview mirror of the select board.
Yeah.
I think mostly because of the issues with the building last year.
Right, of course, the big issue in Swanton Village, the public safety building that went down hard.
There's still a conversation happening about it for sure.
Yeah.
And overall, I think it's looking at the way the rec building currently is, I think it can help Swanton folks so much more if we expand the building in terms of getting like maybe a basketball court in there or various other, like a gym, various other things that the community can use and enjoy. And I think we can be financially responsible while doing it.
Brendan, would you ideally like to see a new facility, or is that just not kind of in the cards at this point? Hard to picture?
I'll stick to ideally I'd like to see one. I think it comes down to the cost.
Sure.
I do. And I think, Nicole as director of the rec department.
Nicole Draper, your colleague.
Has done a phenomenal job. I think we've seen the involvement from our youth grow. And I think investing back in that community is the right decision overall. Planting trees that somebody else will see the shade from is the right move. But I do think it's going to come down to how do we successfully raise the capital for that without overburdening our citizens, because right now, even in the micro changes that we do have today of a slight lift in our tax rate, even that, we hesitate to bring that in front of voters. We want to make sure that we can keep that as far down as we can. So I think, in light of the recent decline of other buildings that have gone up, we have to be very fiscally responsible when we bring that in front of them and really provide the true value statements. Yeah,
of course, the big ticket item a year ago for Swanton Village was the proposed public safety building, and it just sounds like it ran into sticker shock kind of and went down very decisively, and the village just kind of revamped that, come up with another project. Any thoughts on kind of their newest plan to... It sounds like there's a lot of agreement that the police department does need more space.
It does need more space.
Yeah.
There's no holding cell. They don't have enough evidence rooms. They're basically shuffling people that they have under arrest through employees that have nothing to do with the police department. So yeah, there's definitely a need for it. And I took a tour there on Monday, and sometimes I had to almost they had to open up a door so I can get past some of the machines, because there's just not enough space for the electric department. So there is a need. The sticker value, I think what they were saying was a 14% increase in property taxes for the village. They think they can reduce that, for example, if the terrorists don't go in or don't get implemented, or if they can save costs on construction.
And now, of course, they're hooking it on the electric department ratepayers.
Yeah.
A much kind of broader base than village taxpayers.
Yeah, for sure. And
do you get the sense? Have you got a sense? You think that project may make it this time? The revamp project? Have you got a sense?
I think
of
it has
that?
a better shot.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I think it has a better shot. I support it overall, even though I don't live in the village,
Yeah.
so I can't vote on it. But yeah, because I think there's a need for it. But I could understand if it didn't pass as well, because it's still a pretty big increase.
Yeah. Brendan, your thoughts? Any thoughts on that project? And it's a vote in the village.
Yeah, I'm in a unique position because, where my home was built, I'm also on Green Mountain Power. So I'm in the town and
really?
I'm not even on
Oh,
the
is that right?
utility.
No, really
So,
GMP.
so really far removed from it in that aspect. From the impact to myself, but I think, not to echo what Nick said, but I think it does come down to, I think it's a more reasonable ask than what was previously proposed to the community. I still think that that's a hefty increase during a time of inflation overall.
Yeah.
I'd be hesitant to see, to be hopeful that this would pass, just because I think people are very money conscious, but I'd like to recognize there is a need. I just think it's coming back with the right solution.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come down to.
That's true. Well, I guess the Swanton Village Electric Department, at least starting in a good place, has the third lowest electricity rates in the state. So at least they're starting low. But that'll be interesting. It was a big issue a year ago, and now the revamp project, another big issue this time around.
And trust me, I'm very jealous of those rates.
Yeah. Just for Lake Champlain water quality issues, has anybody mentioned that to you? That issue doesn't seem to get quite as much attention these days to me. That issue come up in your
Not this
discussion?
year.
Not this year.
2 years ago when I ran, there was one or two people that brought it up,
Yeah.
but this year not as much.
Doesn't
no.
come up much.
No.
Brendan, you run into that just very quickly?
No, I will say that there's a few nonprofits that, we still, in the most recent budget, you'll see we're still donating some money to
Yeah.
from the town. I'd like to see, and one of the things I proposed to the select board as well, is to have those nonprofits come in and give a presentation to the team to better understand what is our current status.
Yeah.
Is this something that we should be concerned with? Is it something we need to face? Or is it just something to continue to monitor?
Yeah. Down to about 2 minutes. Nick, I'll give you almost a minute or so, 45 seconds. Make your case. Why would you be a good person to be on the select board?
If you want somebody that has the experience, if you want somebody that knows Swanton, been there, living there all their life, if you want someone that cares about his community, I think I'm the right choice for Swanton Select Board. I would, if I don't want to get in this year, I'll try again next year. I got no issue with running again. So if you want to vote for somebody that really focuses on the issues and knows what's going on, I think that I'm a great choice for the select board. That's fine.
Brendan, I'll give you about a minute. You're on the select board now via appointment. You'd like to be elected.
Yeah, I'd love to be, reelected here to the position, and I appreciate the opportunity. I think what I bring to the board is a fresh perspective of I'm not afraid to ask the reason why, because I'm new to the community. Obviously, my wife's story is from a longtime family here, but for myself, I enjoy the opportunity to work with the town to give back to a community that's been very welcoming to us. And having that fresh perspective, I'm a data-driven person. My day-to-day job at TD is working in digital performance, and so I'm very much about the numbers. And so my hope would be to have the opportunity for the next 2 years here to bring that mindset to the community and come back with a really in-depth knowledge of not only how the town functions, but also to be able to give some really critical feedback.
Very good. Again, Brendan Long, And Nick Brosseau, candidates for a 2-year term on the Swanton Selectboard. And again, Brendan Kelly is also on the ballot, 3 candidates. Thanks for the time, folks. Good luck. Thanks to my producer, Alan Cunningham, for doing all the hard work around here. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. Thanks for watching us here on Northwest Access TV. See you next time.